Last lesson gave you the artifact, the decision log, the running history of why your project is shaped the way it is. But an artifact sitting in a folder doesn't keep itself alive. Something has to feed it. That something is a practice, and it's smaller than you think. 10, 15 minutes a day, bolted onto the start and the end of every build session. That's the whole thing. And it's the difference between a method that compounds and one that quietly freezes at the shape it was the week you shipped your first build. Here's what I'm going to give you in the next few minutes. First, the exact shape of the practice. The 3 moves you make when you sit down, the 4 moves you make before you get up, said plainly enough that you could run it on your real project tonight. Then, the part most people miss, what actually happens in those minutes. What you ask, what the AI hands back, what you write down, and how that one note travels upstream and changes the project, instead of just sitting in a log. Then, the quiet half of the discipline nobody teaches. What to take out, not just what to put in, so the whole system stays lean enough to survive. And finally, the move that makes all of it durable. The one rule you hand the AI so the review runs whether or not you remember it. By the end, you'll have a daily practice you can start tomorrow and a rule wired in so you don't have to white knuckle it. So let me name the trap first, because it's the reason this lesson exists. The loop decays. You've probably watched it happen. And it isn't laziness. It's that the feedback loop, as most people picture it, is a big ceremonial thing you do at the end of a project. A retro, a write-up, and a big thing at the end is a thing you skip every single time, because there's always a next feature pulling at you. The fix isn't more willpower. The fix is to make the loop so small it stops being a task you do and starts being part of how a session opens and closes. You don't schedule it like a meeting. You bolt it onto something you already do every day, sitting down to build and standing up from it, so it rides along for free. So here's the front half. 5 minutes at the start of every build session, 3 moves. Move 1, read the recent decision log entries. Last week's, the last 2 weeks, if you've got the time. Here's why it's not busy work. The AI is reading those same entries when it onboards itself into your session. So if you walk in cold and the AI walks in having read the last month of history, it knows more about your own project than you do. And you'll spend the first 20 minutes quietly led by a machine that did its homework while you didn't. 5 minutes of reading puts you back in the driver's seat. Move 2. Check the open items in the brief. What's marked in progress? What's blocked? What's been waiting on a decision only you can make? Surface those before you write a single line or say a word to the AI, because those are the things that ambush a session halfway through. Move 3. Set the intent. 1 sentence, out loud or written down. Today, I'm shipping the empty state on the dashboard. Or, today, I'm deciding between 2 billing flows and nothing else. Hand the AI that same sentence. Now you both walked in, knowing what finished looks like. And a session with a finish line is a session that actually ends. That's 5 minutes, and it feels optional. It's the opposite of optional, because the alternative isn't saving 5 minutes. It's losing 20 later to reorientation. Halfway through, when you realize you forgot the thing that was blocked and built on top of it anyway. Now the back half, the end of the session, and this is where the compounding actually lives. 5 to 10 minutes before you stand up, 4 moves. And I'm going to walk you through a real one, because the moves only mean something when you see them run. Move 1. What did we land? 1 or 2 sentences, concrete, not made progress on the dashboard. Say what's true. Shipped the dashboard empty state, tested the 4 edge cases from the definition of done, and found a loading flicker on stale data I haven't fixed yet. That's a landing. It names what shipped and what didn't. Move 2. What did we learn? This is the one people skip and the one that pays. Anything that wasn't obvious when you sat down. Maybe it's small. The empty state pattern I built here beats the one I used last time. I'd reuse this one. Maybe it's bigger. That loading flicker isn't a screen problem, it's a stale data problem, and it'll show up everywhere I show data, not just here. The learning is the gold. It's what you paid for with your time. And if you don't write it down in the next 60 seconds, it's gone by tomorrow and you'll pay for it again. Move 3. And this is the hinge of the whole practice. What needs to update? Because a learning that stays in the log is a learning that dies in the log. The log is history. It is not memory. Memory is the files the AI actually reads to do the work. The brief, the rules, the decision records. So you take that learning and ask one question. Where upstream does it belong? There's a clean answer for each kind. Something you keep having to correct the AI about isn't a log entry. It's a new rule, and it goes in your rules folder. The project's shape changed. Scope moved, a feature got cut that updates the brief. A real choice with a reason behind it. Like, we're treating stale data as its own case across the whole app. That's a decision record. This is the same engine you built last module. You ask, the AI proposes the update against the right template, shows you exactly what it wants to change, and you confirm or sharpen it. The learning doesn't just get noticed, it travels. It changes a file the AI reads next week, which means next week's AI is smarter than this week's. Not because the model changed, but because you fed it. Move 4. What's tomorrow? One sentence on the next session's intent, written down now while it's fresh. Tomorrow, fix the stale data case and check everywhere else it shows up. Tomorrow, you sits down, reads one line, and skips the cold start entirely. You just handed yourself a running start. 10 minutes, tops. Less when nothing notable happened. A quiet session gets a one-line entry, and you move on. Longer only on the rare landmark day when you learn something that reshapes the project. The size of the review matches the size of what happened. That's what keeps it sustainable. Now, the half of the discipline nobody talks about, the half that keeps the whole system from rotting under its own weight. Adding is only one direction. You also have to take things out. Over months, a project accumulates dead weight. Open questions answered ages ago and never closed. Plans for features you decided not to build. A decision record for a direction you walked away from. Left alone, that clutter doesn't sit there politely. It actively misleads. The AI reads a stale, open question and treats it as live. It reads an abandoned plan and assumes you're still heading that way. Dead context isn't neutral, it's wrong. And wrong context produces wrong work. So part of the review is pruning. But hear the exact move, because this is where people get it wrong. You don't delete, you retire. A resolved open question gets marked resolved with the answer, so the history of how you got there survives. An abandoned plan gets marked abandoned with one line on why and moved out of the active set. We don't get in the business of deleting things. Deleting throws away the trail, and the trail is the whole point of keeping history. You're not erasing, you're moving the dead stuff out of the AI's line of sight, so the live stuff is all it sees. Lean isn't empty, lean is current. And here's the move that decides whether any of this survives a real week. Everything I just described, the 3 opening moves, the 4 closing moves, the pruning, if it lives only in your memory, it dies the first hard day. The day you're tired, behind, and you just want to ship and log off, your memory skips every bit of it. Because that's exactly when discipline that leans on remembering fails. So you don't leave it to memory. You do the same move you've done in every phase of this method. You write the rule down once, and you hand it to the AI. In the standing instructions, your AI follows every session. You add one that says, in plain words, at the start, walk me through the 3 opening checks, the recent decisions, the open items, the intent. At the end, walk me through the 4 closing checks, what we landed, what we learned, what needs to update upstream, and what's next, and surface anything that should be pruned. Wait for me on each one. Sit with what that rule does. Now, the review isn't something you remember, it's something the session does. You sit down, and the AI opens with, before we start, Here are the 3 decisions from last week. Here's what's still blocked. What are we shipping today? You go to stand up, and it stops you. Before you go, what did we land? What did we learn? And does any of it need to update the brief or the rules? The practice runs on rails. The AI is your review partner. It never forgets to ask. It drafts the updates. It points at the dead weight. You still do every bit of the actual work. You decide what was learned. You make the call on what travels upstream. You confirm what gets pruned. It just makes sure you never quietly stop doing it. And I want to be straight about why this works. Because it isn't magic, and I won't pretend it is. The AI isn't secretly running your project or remembering things on your behalf. The review happens every day because you wrote a rule telling it to ask, and you show up to answer. A learning compounds because you decided where it belonged and confirmed the update. The AI just drafted it and filed it. Take the rule out, you're back to a loop that decays by build 3. Put it in, and the method finally does what it promised. It gets better every single time you build, instead of freezing at the shape it had on day 1. You did the thinking, the AI holds the rhythm, you make every call. So here's the move to make the minute this ends, and I'd do it before the next lesson. Don't overbuild it. Open your project and write the 1 rule. The opening checks, the closing checks, the prune, wait for me on each. That's it. Then run it for real at the end of your very next session. 4 moves, 10 minutes, and actually push 1 learning upstream. Turn it into a rule or a brief edit or a decision record. 1 rule wired in, 1 real learning that traveled. That's a working feedback loop. Everything else is just repetition. So that's the operator's daily review. 3 moves in, 4 moves out, prune the dead weight, and a rule that makes it run on its own. It's the practice that keeps the loop from decaying. Run it for a month, and something shifts that's worth seeing coming. The AI stops just answering and starts asking, surfacing the questions you didn't think to ask, catching the contradiction you'd have missed. Because now it's reading a project's worth of history you kept alive. That's the loop, maturing from something you drive into something that pushes back. That's where we go next. I'll see you there.